was 8 months pregnant, standing in the pouring rain outside our apartment in Atlanta, Georgia, watching my husband load his bags into another woman's car. The same woman I'd serve coffee to every morning at the diner where I worked. The same woman who smiled at me while I was carrying his child. That was 3 years ago, and girl, let me tell you, that was just the beginning of my nightmare. But it was also the beginning of my greatest transformation. My name is Jasmine, and if you told me back then that I'd be sitting here today in my penthouse overlooking the Atlanta skyline, running a multi-million-dollar business empire, I would have laughed through my tears.
But here I am. And this is my story.
That night in the rain changed everything. Marcus, my husband of 2 years, didn't even have the decency to look me in
the eye.
He just threw his last bag in her trunk, mumbled something about needing to find himself, and drove away. Left me standing there with my belly full of his child, 3 months behind on rent, and exactly $47 in my bank account. I remember that number because I checked it 5 times that night, hoping somehow it would magically increase. The door to our apartment was locked. He'd changed the locks. Can you believe that? Changed the locks on his own. Pregnant wife. I sat on those concrete steps until 2 a.m., calling everyone I knew. My mama had passed 2 years before, and my sister was struggling with her own demons in Chicago. I had nowhere to go, no one to call. That's when I realized something that would haunt me for months to come. I was completely alone. Eventually, Mrs. Chun from downstairs heard me crying and let me sleep on her couch. That angel of a woman, I'll never forget her kindness. She was 73 years old, living on a fixed income, and she shared her space and her food with me without hesitation. "You strong girl," she'd say in her broken English, patting my hand.
"You see,
you be okay." I wanted to believe her, but girl, I couldn't see how. The next morning, I dragged myself to work at Ruby's Diner on Peachtree Street. My eyes were swollen from crying, my back ached from sleeping on that couch, and my heart felt like it had been ripped out of my chest. But I needed that job. I needed every single tip, every single dollar. My manager, Big Tony, took one look at me and pulled me aside. "Jazz, you look rough, baby girl. What happened?" I tried to hold it together, I really did. But the moment he asked, everything came pouring out. The affair, the abandonment, the locked door, everything. Tony's face went from concern to pure rage, but he composed himself and did something that still makes me emotional to this day. He advanced me 2 weeks' pay, right there on the spot.
No
paperwork, no questions, just handed me an envelope with cash. If you were in my shoes, what would you do? Would you hold yourself together, or would you cry and leave everything behind? Don't forget to tell us in the comments and subscribe and like the videos for more life struggles. "You get yourself situated," he said. "And Jasmine, you're stronger than you know." I wish I'd believed him then. Instead, I felt like the weakest person alive. But you know what? Sometimes you gotta hit rock bottom before you can start climbing. And girl, I was about to go even lower before I could rise. I found a tiny efficiency apartment in a rough neighborhood, the kind where you hear sirens every night and check your locks twice before bed. It was all I could afford, even with Tony's advance. 400 square feet of peeling paint and broken dreams. But it was mine. Well, technically the landlord's, but you know what I mean. It was shelter, and when you're 8 months pregnant with nowhere else to go, shelter is everything. The hardest part wasn't the roaches or the broken heater or the sounds of people arguing through paper-thin walls. The hardest part was the shame. Every day at the diner, I'd see couples come in, laughing and happy, and I'd wonder what was wrong with me. Why wasn't I enough? Why did he choose her? These questions ate at me like poison, slowly destroying what little self-esteem I had left. My daughter, Zara, was born on a cold February morning. I labored for 18 hours alone in Grady Hospital. No husband, no family, just me and the nurses who rotated shifts. When they placed her in my arms, this tiny perfect being with her father's dimples and my eyes, I felt two things simultaneously: overwhelming love and terrifying responsibility. How was I supposed to raise this beautiful child when I could barely take care of myself? Those first few months were the darkest of my life. Between feedings and diaper changes and trying to heal from childbirth, I felt like I was drowning. The sleep deprivation alone was enough to break anyone, but add in the postpartum hormones, the financial stress, and the loneliness. Girl, I was barely holding on. Some nights I'd rock Zara and just cry, apologizing to her for bringing her into such a mess. I went back to work at Ruby's when Zara was 6 weeks old. Had no choice. Bills don't stop because you had a baby. Mrs. Chen offered to watch her during my shifts, refusing to take more than $20 a day, which I know is less than she deserved. You pay me back one day, she'd say, waving off my protests. When you rich and famous,
She said.
It like it was inevitable, like she could see something in me that I couldn't see in myself. Working full-time with a newborn was brutal. I'd get home at midnight, feed Zara, sleep for maybe 3 hours if I was lucky, wake up to feed her again, try to catch another hour of sleep, then get ready to do it all over again. My body was constantly exhausted, my mind foggy from lack of rest. I dropped plates at work, mixed up orders, cried in the walk-in freezer when no one was looking. Tony knew I was struggling, but he kept me on because he believed in me.
You're
Going through hell, Jazz, he'd say. But you're still showing up. That's what matters. 6 months after Zara was born, Marcus showed up at the diner. I was refilling coffee for a table when I looked up, and there he was sitting in my section with that same woman. The audacity. The absolute disrespect. My hands shook so badly, I nearly dropped the pot. He had the nerve to look uncomfortable, like he didn't know I worked there, like he hadn't been coming to this diner for years. I wanted to run. I wanted to throw that hot coffee in his face. I wanted to scream and cry and demand answers. Instead, I took a deep breath, straightened my spine, and walked over with my order pad. Professional. Dignified. Because I had a daughter at home who needed to eat, and I couldn't afford to lose this job over his mess. What can I get you? My voice was steady, cold as ice. Marcus couldn't even look at me. The woman, Karen, she had the decency to look ashamed.
good.
She should be. They ordered quickly, spoke in whispers, and left a terrible tip. But you know what? I held my head high through the whole
Thing.
didn't give them the satisfaction of seeing me break. That was the first time I felt something shift inside me. A tiny spark of strength, of dignity, of self-respect that I thought he'd stolen from me. That night, after putting Zara to bed, I sat on my apartment floor and had a conversation with myself. A real, honest conversation about what I wanted my life to look like. Did I want to be a victim forever? Did I want my daughter to grow up watching her mother barely survive? Or did I want to show her what it means to rise up, to fight back, to become something more than your circumstances? The answer was clear, but the path forward wasn't. I had no college degree, no special skills beyond taking orders and serving food, no savings, no support system. But I had something else, something that Marcus and his affair couldn't take from me. I had determination. I had a reason to fight. I had Zara. And for her, I would move mountains. What would you do if you were in my situation? No diploma, no skills. What path do you follow?
Please comment.
Subscribe and like the video for more. I started small. On my days off, I'd take Zara to the library and use the free computers to research business opportunities. I watched YouTube videos about entrepreneurship, read articles about women who built empires from nothing, studied everything I could about success. The librarian, Miss Patterson, noticed my dedication and started recommending books. She became another unexpected angel in my story, always having a new resource or word of encouragement ready. Knowledge is power, baby, she'd tell me, sliding another business book across the desk.
And you? You got that.
Hungry look. That's how I know you're going to make it. I absorbed everything like a sponge. marketing strategies, financial literacy, personal development, you name it. I learned that my situation wasn't unique, that countless women had been where I was and found their way out.
But more.
Importantly, I learned that waiting for someone to save me was a waste of time. I had to save myself. I had to be my own
hero.
One evening, after a particularly grueling double shift, I was counting my tips at home when Zara started crying. I picked her up, held her close, and something Tony had said weeks earlier suddenly clicked in my mind. He'd mentioned how much money Ruby's Diner spent on catering services for local businesses and events. If only we had someone reliable who could handle that side of things, he'd said. I'd give them all the business. That was it. That was my opportunity. I could start a catering business. I knew how to cook, I understood customer service, and I had connections in the restaurant industry through Ruby's. It wasn't a revolutionary idea, but it was practical, achievable, and something I could build while still working my regular job. But there was one massive problem. I had no money to start. The next few months, I worked like a woman possessed. I picked up every extra shift available, said yes to every catering opportunity Tony threw my way, even if it meant working 16-hour days. I saved every single penny I could, cutting my expenses down to nothing. I ate ramen noodles and peanut butter sandwiches so Zara could have proper food. I walked everywhere to save on bus fare. I bought her clothes from thrift stores and went without buying anything for myself. It was hard, exhausting work, but every dollar I saved brought me closer to my dream. Mrs. Chen watched Zara during my long shifts, still refusing to take proper payment. You save that money, she'd insist. Build your business. One day you help other people like I help you. That's how it works. Her faith in me was sometimes the only thing that kept me going on the hardest days, when my feet ached and my body screamed for rest, and quitting seemed so much easier than continuing. After 8 months of brutal saving, I had $1,800. Not much, but it was a start. I registered my business, A Taste of Hope Catering, using the free business registration assistance program at the local community center. I designed flyers on the library computers and posted them everywhere I could. I reached out to every church, office, building, and community organization within a 10-mile radius. And I prayed. Girl, did I pray. I prayed for opportunities, for strength, for just one chance to prove myself. My first real catering job came from Pastor Williams at the church Mrs. Chen attended. She'd been talking me up to him for months, showing him my flyers, vouching for my character and work ethic. He needed someone to cater a church anniversary dinner for 80 people. The budget was tight, but if I did well, he promised to recommend me to other churches in the area. This was my shot, my one real chance to prove I could do this. And girl, I was terrified. I spent every penny of my savings on that church dinner. Fresh ingredients, quality serving dishes I bought from a restaurant supply store, even rented proper chafing dishes to keep the food warm. I cooked for 3 days straight in my tiny apartment kitchen, with Zara in her playpen watching me work. My neighbor probably thought I'd lost my mind, but I was on a mission. This wasn't just a catering job. This was my future, my daughter's future, wrapped up in fried chicken, mac and cheese, collard greens, and sweet potato pie. The night before the event, I couldn't sleep. What if the food wasn't good enough? What if I messed up the quantities? What if people got sick? My anxiety was through the roof. But when I looked at Zara sleeping peacefully in her crib, I reminded myself why I was doing this. Failure wasn't an option. It just wasn't. That Saturday, I arrived at the church 4 hours early to set up. My hands were shaking as I arranged everything, making sure every dish looked perfect, every detail was right. When the guests started arriving, I watched their faces as they tasted my food. The way their eyes lit up, the way they went back for seconds, the compliments they gave Pastor Williams. Girl, I felt like I could fly. This was working. People loved what I'd created. Pastor Williams pulled me aside after dinner, and I held my breath, waiting for his verdict. Jasmine, he said, his face breaking into the biggest smile. That was exceptional. You've got a gift, young lady. I'm going to make some calls for you. And he did. Within 2 weeks, I had 3 more bookings. Within a month, I had 8. Word spreads fast in the Atlanta church community, and honey, when church ladies love your food, your phone doesn't stop ringing. But success brought new challenges. I was still working full-time at Ruby's, now running a catering business on the side, and raising a baby. I wasn't sleeping more than 3 or 4 hours a night. I'd finish my shift at the diner at midnight, go home and prep food until 4 a.m., sleep until Zara woke up at 6, take care of her until Mrs. Chin arrived, then head back to Ruby's. My body was exhausted, but my spirit was alive for the first time in years. That's life. Sometimes you have to give more than you can get from life. I never stopped fighting, and I continued. All women who struggle and strive like me will never give up. I know you will too. If you like my story, like the video and subscribe to the channel, my friends. The money started coming in, slowly at first, then faster. I was making more from my weekend catering jobs than I was making at the diner in a week. I opened a separate bank account just for the business, watched those numbers grow, and started dreaming bigger. What if this could be more than just a side hustle? What if I could actually turn this into something real? 6 months into running a Taste of Hope catering, I made a decision that scared me to death. I gave Tony my 2 weeks notice at Ruby's. He wasn't surprised, just proud. Go get it, Jazz, he said, hugging me tight. You were always meant for more than this place. But you remember where you came from. You hear me? I promised him I would. That man had been there when I had nothing, and I'd never forget that. Going full-time with my business was terrifying and liberating all at once. Suddenly, I had time to market myself properly, to take on bigger jobs, to really build something. I created a simple website using a free template, started an Instagram page showcasing my dishes, and began networking at every local business event I could find. You know what I learned? People want to support you when they see you really working for it. They want to be part of your success story. My biggest break came from the most unexpected place. I was catering a corporate luncheon for a tech startup. Downtown, nothing fancy, just sandwiches and salads for about 30 people. But I made sure everything was perfect. Added little touches like fresh flowers on each table and handwritten thank you cards. The CEO, a woman named Diana Richardson, pulled me aside afterward. Jasmine, right? She said, and I nodded, nervous about what was coming. I've been watching you today. The way you handle yourself, the attention to detail, the care you put into everything. I'm impressed. How would you feel about being our exclusive caterer? We have events twice a week, sometimes more. My heart nearly stopped. This was exactly the kind of steady contract I needed to really stabilize the business. I would be honored, I managed to say, trying to keep my voice professional even though I wanted to scream with joy. Good, Diana smiled. But I'm going to be honest with you. You're working out of your apartment, aren't you? I started to panic, thinking she was going to take back the offer, but she continued. I did the same thing when I started my company. I know hustle when I see it. Here's what I'm going to do. I have a commercial kitchen space that my last caterer abandoned. It's included in our building lease, but we're not using it. You can use it for your business, rent-free for the first 6 months, as long as you're our exclusive caterer. After that, we'll work out a fair arrangement. I almost cried right there in that conference room. This was more than just a break. This was a miracle. A real commercial kitchen meant I could take on bigger jobs, meant I could hire help, meant I could actually scale this business. I accepted on the spot, and 2 weeks later, I was moving my operation into a professional kitchen with real equipment and space to grow. Having that kitchen changed everything. I could prep multiple events at once, take on corporate contracts, and finally get some sleep because I wasn't cooking in my apartment until dawn. I hired my first employee, a young woman named Keisha, who reminded me so much of myself just a year earlier. Single mom, struggling, hungry for an opportunity. I paid her well and treated her with respect, the way Tony had treated me. The business grew fast. By the end of my first year, A Taste of Hope Catering was booking events almost every day.
I
Had 3 employees, a growing reputation, and finally, I was making real money. Not just surviving money, but actually building wealth money. I moved Zara and myself out of that efficiency apartment into a real 2-bedroom place, in a safe neighborhood with good schools. I bought furniture that wasn't from Goodwill. I could afford to buy my daughter new clothes and toys without checking my bank account first. But the universe wasn't done testing me yet. Just when things were going well, I got a call from Tony. Ruby's Diner was closing. Big chain restaurant bought the property, and Tony was losing everything he'd built over 30 years. My heart broke for him. This man had saved my life when I had nothing, and now he was losing his dream. I couldn't let that happen. I made him an offer.
come work with me.
Be my operations manager. Help me build something bigger than just catering. Maybe we could open an actual restaurant, something that honored his legacy and my journey. Tony cried when I offered
Him the job.
a grown man, weeping because someone remembered his kindness and wanted to give back. You sure about this, Jazz? He asked. I'm old, set in my ways. You believed in me when nobody else did, I told him. Now it's my turn to believe in you. If it were you, would you give him a job or would you give him bad behavior? Let's discuss in the comments, and also if you like my story, you can support me by liking the video and subscribe to the channel for more struggle stories. Tony brought structure and experience to my operation. Together, we transformed A Taste of Hope from a catering company into a full-service food enterprise. We secured contracts with major corporations, wedding venues, and event planners across Atlanta. The money was flowing, and I was smart with it this time. I hired a financial advisor, invested in the business, started a college fund for Zara, and began building real wealth. Zara was 2 years old now, thriving in a good daycare, surrounded by opportunities one never had at her age. Watching her grow up happy and secure, not worried about where her next meal was coming from or if we'd have a place to sleep. That was worth more than any amount of money. She was my motivation, my purpose, my reminder of why I couldn't give up even on the hardest days. But success brings visibility, and visibility brought Marcus back into my life. He showed up at one of my events, a fancy corporate gala I was catering. I didn't recognize him at first. He looked rough, worn down, nothing like the confident man who'd left me in the rain 3 years ago. He waited until the event was over, until I was packing up, and then approached
Me.
Jasmine, he said, and I froze. Can we talk? Every emotion I'd buried came flooding back. Anger, hurt, betrayal, but also something new. Pity. He looked lost, desperate, nothing like the man who'd walked away from his pregnant wife. What do you want, Marcus? My voice was tired, not angry. I was beyond anger now. I made a mistake, he started, and I almost laughed. A mistake? Karen and we broke up. She left me for someone
Else.
ironic, right? He tried to smile, but it came out bitter. I lost my job, lost everything. I heard you were doing well, and I thought maybe what? I interrupted. Maybe I'd forget how you left me pregnant and homeless? Maybe I'd forget how you changed the locks on your own wife. Maybe I'd forget how you came to my workplace with the woman you left me for. My voice was rising now, 3 years of pain pouring out. What exactly did you think would happen here, Marcus? He had the decency to look ashamed. I need help, Jazz. I've got nothing. No job, no money, getting evicted next week. And I know I don't deserve anything from you, but I'm desperate. Part of me wanted to help him. That's just who I am, you know? But I'd learned something important over these past 3 years. You can't save someone who doesn't want to save themselves. Marcus had made his choices, just like I'd made mine. He chose to leave when things got hard. I chose to stay and fight. I'm sorry you're struggling, I said, and I meant it. But I can't help you. Not because I'm bitter, but because you need to. Find your own way, just like I had to find mine. You want to know the truth? You leaving was the best thing that ever happened to me. It forced me to become strong, to discover what I was capable of. So no, I won't give you money or a job or anything else. But I will tell you this, you can rebuild. It won't be easy, but it's possible. I'm living proof. Marcus left looking defeated, and I felt nothing but relief. Seeing him again showed me how far I'd come, how much I'd
grown.
I wasn't that scared, broken woman crying on the steps anymore. I was Jasmine, CEO of a successful catering company, mother to a beautiful daughter, and a woman who'd turned her pain into power. That encounter with Marcus lit a fire under me. I wanted to do more than just run a successful business. I wanted to help other women who were where I'd been, broken, scared, thinking they had no way out. So I started a program through my
Company.
For every major event we catered, we'd donate a portion of the profits to a local women's shelter. And we'd hire women from that shelter, give them training, pay them fairly, and help them build their own paths to independence. The first woman we hired through the program was named Shanice. 23 years old, 2 kids, escaping a situation I wouldn't wish on my worst enemy. She was quiet, scared, reminded me so much of myself at my lowest point. I took her under my wing personally, taught her everything about the business, built up her confidence. You're not broken, I'd tell her whenever she seemed overwhelmed. You're rebuilding. There's a difference. Watching Shanice transform over the months was like watching my own journey reflected back at me. She went from barely making eye contact to leading prep teams, from crying in the bathroom to laughing with customers. 6 months after hiring her, she came to me with an idea for expanding our dessert menu. It was brilliant, creative, exactly the kind of innovation we needed. I implemented it immediately and gave her a raise and the title of pastry manager. "Why are you doing this for me?" she asked one day, tears in her eyes. "You don't even know me." "Because someone did it for me," I said simply. "And because I believe in passing it forward. You're going to be amazing, Shanice. Just watch." The program grew. We hired 5 women, then 10, then 15. Each one with their own story, their own pain, their own dreams. And we gave them what I'd been given, a chance. Just one real chance to prove what they could do. Some of them struggled, some of them thrived, but all of them were given dignity and opportunity. That became my real mission, my real purpose beyond just making money. By the time Zara turned 3, A Taste of Hope Catering had become A Taste of Hope Enterprises. We'd opened our first restaurant, a soul food place in downtown Atlanta that honored the cooking traditions of strong Black women who'd come before us. We still did catering, but now we had a physical location where people could come and experience our food, our hospitality, our love poured into every dish. The grand opening was packed, covered by local media, and became the talk of the city. The restaurant was more successful than I'd ever imagined. Lines wrapped around the block on weekends. We were getting 5-star reviews, and food bloggers were calling us the best soul food in Atlanta. But more than the success, it was the stories that mattered. Women would come in and tell me how my journey inspired them, how seeing a Black woman build an empire from nothing gave them hope. That's when I realized I wasn't just running a business anymore. I was creating a movement. One evening, about 6 months after opening the restaurant, a man walked in during our dinner rush.
Tall,
handsome, well-dressed, but it was his smile that caught my attention. Warm and genuine, like sunshine, breaking through clouds. He waited patiently for a table, didn't complain about the wait time like some customers did, just stood there reading the quotes from successful Black women entrepreneurs we'd painted on the walls. When he was finally seated, I noticed he ordered one of everything from our special menu, the dishes that told the story of my journey. The struggle mac and cheese, the resilience ribs, the breakthrough banana pudding. Each dish had a story attached to it on the menu, explaining what that food meant during different phases of my
life.
He read every single description, and I watched from the kitchen window as he savored each bite, really tasted the love and history in the food. After his meal, he asked to speak to the owner. My heart did a little flip, nervous. It was a complaint, but when I walked out, his face lit up. "You must be Jasmine," he said, standing to shake my hand. "I'm Dr. David Thompson. I just had to meet the woman behind this incredible food and even more incredible story." We talked for 2 hours that night, long after the restaurant closed. David was a pediatrician who'd opened a clinic in underserved communities, treating kids whose families couldn't afford healthcare. He'd grown up poor in Alabama, worked his way through medical school, and was now giving back to communities that looked like the one he came from. We had so much in common, this understanding of struggle and the responsibility that comes with success. "Can I take you to dinner sometime?" he asked as he was leaving. "I mean, I know you own a restaurant, so maybe that's weird, but I'd love to get to know you better." I hadn't dated since Marcus. Hadn't even thought about it, honestly. My life was Zara, my business, my mission. But something about David felt different, safe, like maybe I could trust again. "I'd like that," I heard myself say, surprising myself with how much I meant it. Our first official date was at a small jazz club in Midtown. David picked me up, met Zara, who immediately loved him, and treated me like a queen the entire evening. He asked about my dreams, really listened to my answers, shared his own fears and hopes. He didn't try to impress me with money or status.
He was just himself.
Genuine and kind. By the end of the night, I knew this was something special. David and I took things slow. He understood I had trust issues, understood why I'd built walls around my heart. He never pushed, never demanded more than I was ready to give. He'd show up at the restaurant with flowers. Not for me, but for the women working in my program, telling them they were doing amazing work. He'd play with Zara for hours, making her giggle in ways that made my heart full. Slowly, brick by brick, he helped me tear down those walls. Would you open your heart to such a person? Would you trust such a man? Tell me in the comments, and if you liked my story, don't forget to subscribe and like the video. 6 months into our relationship, David proposed an idea that would change everything. "What if we combined our missions?" he said one night. "You're feeding bodies, I'm healing bodies. What if we created something that did both? A community center with a restaurant, a clinic, job training, childcare, everything struggling families need in one place." It was ambitious, maybe even crazy, but it was exactly the kind of vision I'd been dreaming about. We spent months planning, fundraising, securing grants, and partnerships. We called it Hope Haven, and it would be located in the neighborhood where I'd lived when I was at my lowest. The same streets where I'd walked with Zara as a baby, wondering how I'd survive, would now house a place where other women could find hope. The business was exploding. We opened a second restaurant location, then a third. The catering company was booking events months in advance. Corporate partnerships were rolling in. I hired a full management team, including Shanice, who'd become my director of operations. My employees were making good money, had benefits, and were building careers, not just working jobs. And the numbers in my bank account? Girl, they were numbers I'd never imagined possible. I'll never forget the day my accountant told me I'd officially become a millionaire. I was in my office, Zara was at preschool, and he called with the news. "Jasmine, with your business valuations, investments, and liquid assets, your net worth just crossed 7 figures. Congratulations." I hung up the phone and just sat there, numb with disbelief. A millionaire.
Me.
The girl who'd been left pregnant and homeless, who'd eaten ramen noodles for months, who'd cried herself to sleep wondering if she'd ever be
okay.
I was a millionaire. I called Mrs. Chen first, before anyone else, because she believed in me when I didn't believe in myself. "I told you," she shouted into the phone, laughing and crying at the same time. "I told you that you were going to be rich and famous. Now you remember, you help others like I helped you." "Always," I promised. Always. Success brought media attention. Local news wanted to feature my story, then regional outlets, then national ones. I was invited to speak at business conferences, women's empowerment events, and entrepreneurship summits. At first, I was hesitant,
I didn't want to be in the spotlight.
but then I realized my story could help millions of women who felt hopeless, who thought they couldn't rebuild after devastation. I started speaking publicly about my journey, about being abandoned while pregnant, about the nights I didn't know how I'd feed my baby, about building a business from nothing. The response was overwhelming. Women reached out from all over the country, sharing their own stories, thanking me for giving them hope. Some of them came to Atlanta just to volunteer at Hope Haven, to be part of what we were building. David and I got engaged on Zara's 4th birthday. He proposed in the kitchen of our first restaurant, surrounded by my employees who'd become family. He got down on one knee and said, "Jasmine, you're the strongest woman I've ever met. You've shown me what it means to turn pain into purpose.
I want to spend the rest of my
Life building dreams with you. Will you marry me?" I said yes through happy tears, and the whole restaurant erupted in cheers. Zara was jumping up and down, shouting, "David's gonna be my daddy." And my heart felt so full I thought it might burst. After everything I'd been through, after all the pain and struggle, I was getting a second chance at love. A real love, built on respect and partnership and shared values. But life has a way of bringing your past back around right when you're at your highest. A few weeks before our wedding, Marcus showed up again, this time at Hope Haven. He looked even worse than the last time I'd seen him. Thinner, desperate, with that look in his eyes that said he'd hit absolute rock bottom. "Jasmine, please," he said when security tried to remove him. "Just 5 minutes. That's all I'm asking." Against my better judgment, I agreed to talk to him in my office. David offered to stay with me, but I told him I needed to do this alone. Marcus sat across from my desk, looking at the photos on the wall. Pictures of me and Zara, me receiving business awards, me and David at charity events. Evidence of everything I'd built without him. "You really did it," he said quietly. "You became everything I said you couldn't be." That stopped me cold. "What do you mean?" "Before I left," he continued, staring at his hands, "I used to tell you that you weren't ambitious enough, that you'd never be more than a waitress, that you were holding me back. I convinced myself that leaving you was about finding someone better, but the truth is, I was intimidated by you. Even then, even when you were just working at the diner, you had something I didn't have. Determination, character, strength." I didn't know what to say. Part of me wanted to tell him how much those words had hurt me, how they'd echoed in my head during my darkest moments. But another part of me realized his opinion didn't matter anymore. It never had. The only opinion that mattered was mine. "Why are you here, Marcus?" I asked, not unkindly, just tired. "I'm homeless," he admitted. "Been living in my car for 3 months. Lost everything. My friends, my family, everyone's given up on me. I heard about this place, about the program you run, helping people get back on their
feet.
I know I have no right to ask, but I need help. Jazz, real help. Here's the thing about growth and healing. Sometimes the ultimate test is facing the person who hurt you most and choosing forgiveness. Not for them, but for yourself. Marcus had destroyed me once, but he couldn't touch me now. I was too strong, too secure, too healed. And the program I'd built was meant to help people who'd hit rock bottom, regardless of who they were. "I'll tell you what I'm going to do," I said carefully. "Hope Haven has a 30-day residential program. You'll get a bed, 3 meals a day, job training, counseling, and support finding employment. But here's the thing, Marcus. You won't be getting special treatment because you used to be my husband. Actually, you'll probably get less access to me than other participants because of our history. If you're serious about rebuilding your life, we can help. But if you're looking for a handout or trying to manipulate me, you can leave right now." He nodded, tears streaming down his face. "I'm serious. I'll do whatever it takes." "Thank you, Jasmine.
You're a
better person than I ever was. No, I corrected him. I'm just someone who remembers what rock bottom feels like and doesn't want anyone
to stay there. But Marcus?
You need to understand something. Me helping you through this program isn't about
us.
There is no us. There never will be again. I'm marrying an incredible man in 3 weeks, a man who knows my worth and treats me accordingly. This is purely humanitarian. Do you understand? I understand, he said. And for what it's worth, I'm happy you found someone who treats you right. You always deserved that. I enrolled Marcus in the program that day and assigned him to Tony as his case manager. The irony wasn't lost on either of them. Tony, the man who'd helped me when Marcus left me with nothing, now helping Marcus rebuild what he destroyed. But Tony handled it with grace, telling me later, everyone deserves a chance to start over, even him. The wedding was beautiful, small and intimate, just close friends and family at Hope Haven's community garden. Zara was the flower girl, wearing a dress she'd picked out herself, throwing petals and giggling the whole way down the aisle. Mrs. Chen sat in the front row, crying happy tears. All my employees were there, the women whose lives had changed just like mine had changed. And when David and I said our vows, promising to love and support each other through everything life would throw at us, I felt complete in a way I never had before. Our honeymoon was short because neither of us could stay away from our work too long, but those 5 days in Jamaica were perfect. We talked about the future, about expanding Hope Haven to other cities, about maybe giving Zara a little brother or sister, about growing old together while continuing to serve our community.
We
dreamed big because we'd both learned that dreams were meant to be chased, not just wished for. You can like my stories and subscribe to the ones you like. Stay strong. That was 3 years ago. Today, I'm sitting in my penthouse overlooking Atlanta, watching the sunrise paint the city gold. Zara, now 7 years old, is still sleeping in her princess-themed bedroom. David's in the kitchen, making breakfast, humming along to the jazz playing softly. Our son, little Marcus Jr., yes, I named him Marcus, as a symbol of redemption and new beginnings, is cooing in his crib. This life, this peace, this abundance, I had to walk through hell to get here, but every single struggle was worth it. A Taste of Hope Enterprises now operates in 5 cities across the country. We have 12 restaurant locations, a thriving catering business that serves Fortune 500 companies, and Hope Haven centers in Atlanta, Houston, and Chicago, with 2 more opening next year in Detroit and Oakland. We've helped over 500 women rebuild their lives through our employment and housing programs. 500 women who were exactly where I was, who thought they had no way out, who are now thriving. My net worth crossed $10 million last year. $10 million. Sometimes I still can't believe it. I own properties, have investments, and established a foundation that provides grants to single mothers starting businesses. The girl who counted pennies to buy ramen noodles now writes 6-figure checks to organizations supporting Black women entrepreneurs. The transformation still amazes me. But here's what money taught me. It's not about the cars or the house or the designer clothes, though I won't lie. Having financial security feels incredible. It's about freedom. Freedom to help others. Freedom to create opportunities. Freedom to show my daughter that no matter where you start, you can rise. That's the real wealth. Zara doesn't remember those hard early years, and honestly, I'm grateful for that. She's growing up confident, secure, knowing she's loved and protected. She talks about wanting to be a doctor like David and a business owner like me. I want to help people and make money, she says with the certainty only a 7-year-old can have. Girl, that's my daughter. Already understanding that success and service go hand in hand. David's clinic has expanded too. We built it adjacent to Hope Haven, and together we're providing comprehensive support. Food, healthcare, job training, mental health services, childcare, everything a family needs to not just survive but thrive. We're proving that when you invest in people, when you give them real opportunities and support, they rise. Every single time. Last month, Shanice, my former employee who's now director of operations, bought her first house. A real house with a yard for her kids in a safe neighborhood with good schools. She called me crying, thanking me for giving her a chance. But I told her the same thing I tell everyone. I didn't do this.
You did.
I just opened a door. You walked through it and did the work. Tony retired last year at 75, finally ready to rest after a lifetime of service. We threw him the biggest party, and I made sure he'd never have to worry about money again. Set him up with a retirement package that would make any corporate executive jealous. You saved my life, I told him at his retirement party. This is the least I can do. Nah, baby girl, he said, tears in his eyes. You saved your own life. I just believed in you until you could believe in yourself. Mrs. Chun, my angel from those dark days, lives in a beautiful assisted living facility that I pay for. She's 80 years old now, still sharp as a tack, still telling everyone who'll listen that she knew I'd be rich and famous.
I
Visit her every week with Zara, and she spoils my babies rotten. See, she says every time. I told you.
You
Help people, people help you. That's how life works. And Marcus? He completed the 30-day program at Hope Haven, then stayed on for the extended 90-day program. He did the work, went to counseling, faced his demons, took responsibility for his actions. We hired him for our maintenance team afterward, and he's been with us for almost 3 years now. He's not rich, not even comfortable, but he has a steady job, a small apartment, and he's sober. Most importantly, he's in Zara's life now, but only because he earned that right. He pays child support on time every month, shows up for Zara's school events, and respects the boundaries David and I set. We're not friends, we'll never be friends, but we're civil for our daughter's sake. Sometimes I see him watching me at company events, and I know he's thinking about what he threw away. But that's his burden to carry, not mine. The most beautiful part? He's become an advocate for the men's program we started at Hope Haven. He shares his story, tells other men about how his pride and poor choices cost him everything, helps them understand that real strength is admitting you need help. He's doing the work to become a better man, and while it doesn't erase the past, it shows growth. That's all any of us can do, right? Grow from our mistakes. Just last week, I was keynote speaker at a national conference for women entrepreneurs. 2,000 women in that audience. And when I told my story, when I talked about standing in the rain, pregnant and homeless, watching my husband drive away, you could have heard a pin drop. But when I got to the part about building my empire, about rising from rock bottom to multimillionaire, the room erupted. Women were on their feet, crying, cheering because they saw themselves in my story. After my speech, dozens of women lined up to talk to me. Each one had their own story of loss, of being broken, of not knowing how to go on. And I told each one the same thing. You are not your circumstances. You are not what happened to you. You are what you choose to become. And baby, you can choose to rise. One woman, tears streaming down her face, asked me, how did you forgive him? How did you let go of the anger? I thought about it for a moment before answering. I didn't forgive him for him. I forgave him for me. Because holding on to that anger was like drinking poison and expecting him to die. I had to let it go so I could fly.
and
Once I did, girl, there was no stopping me. That's the truth right there. The moment I stopped focusing on what Marcus took from me and started focusing on what I could build, everything changed. He didn't break me. He freed me. Freed me from a marriage that wasn't serving me. Freed me from the version of myself that was playing small. Freed me to become who I was always meant to be. Now I wake up every morning next to a man who cherishes me, who supports my dreams, who parents my daughter like she's his own blood. I run an empire that employs hundreds of people and has helped thousands.
More.
I'm raising two beautiful children who will never know poverty or hopelessness. I'm making a difference. In my community, in my city, in this country. And I'm doing it all as my authentic self, not trying to fit into someone else's idea of who I should be. 3 years ago, if someone had told me this would be my life, I wouldn't have believed them. But here's what I learned. Rock bottom is a foundation you can build on. Every single struggle, every tear, every moment I thought I couldn't go on, those were building blocks. They made me stronger, wiser, more compassionate. They gave me a story worth telling and a mission worth living. To every woman reading this, every sister who's been left, betrayed, broken down, told she's not enough. You are enough. You've always been enough. That person who left didn't see your value, but that doesn't mean you don't have it. You are worthy of love, of success, of happiness, of abundance. And you have the power within you to create a life beyond your wildest dreams. Subscribe for more and join us. We are stronger together. Like the video and leave your opinions about it in the comments. It won't be easy. There will be days you want to quit, nights you cry yourself to sleep, moments you doubt everything. But baby, keep going. Keep pushing. Keep believing. Because your breakthrough is coming. Your empire is waiting to be built. Your story is waiting to be written. And when you finally rise, when you finally become who you were meant to be, you'll look back and thank God for every single struggle that got you there. I'm Jasmine Thompson, CEO, philanthropist, wife, mother, and living proof that your past doesn't determine your future. From standing in the rain, pregnant and abandoned, to standing in boardrooms, making million-dollar decisions. From food stamps to Forbes mentions. From rock bottom to riches. And if I can do it, so can you. So get up, dust yourself off, and start building your empire. The world is waiting for you to rise.